half an hour past what the meeting schedule was for. I'm going to bring it up to the council for questions or comments, but let's keep in mind that we're already running half an hour late.
I'm going to make a comment, I guess, and it might contain a few questions, but you know, the first thing that really strikes me about the presentation we heard from PG&E is the emphasis at the beginning on informed consent as far as privacy is concerned. But to me, the primary question is informed consent on the whole system to begin with. There's been no informed consent. The information has been lacking. The consent is non-existent. There's no consent for deployment of the system in Fairfax. And if you take that sort of as a primary starting point of what a democracy is and what a democracy should do, you know, however impressive the system may be technically, it fails as an architecture of democracy. It's not accepted by the people. The people have not consented to it. And we're sort of we're under a lot of pressure as far as what should we do? We've heard that the community in West Marin is ready to commit civil disobedience. I think that is going to happen in Fairfax if the deployment goes ahead. The deployment's going ahead while the California Council on Science and Technology is still doing their report on whether FCC guidelines are adequate. Certainly, deployment shouldn't be continued until that report has been published and has had full comments on it. And that's not expected for another 2 or 3 months at least. So my primary concern is to keep Fairfax's moratorium intact. And what I'd like to ask is, do we have a commitment that that's going to happen or not? Are you guys willing to honor the moratorium or not?
Well, just to be, with all due respect, again, it's not a question of honoring the moratorium or not. That's more of a legal question. We are voluntarily rescheduling our deployment, and we have no plans at this time to deploy in Fairfax until we gather this information and look at other options.
Yeah, that really doesn't answer the question, with all due respect.
Actually, I think it does, and his answer is no, unfortunately.
Well, maybe that is the answer. But we've got a state agency that's in the midst of doing a study that will at least address some of these concerns. How can you continue to deploy? How can you hold that threat over our heads while that's still pending? It just doesn't make sense to me.
But sir, they're not coming right now. The study is probably going to be out in the next couple of weeks, as we are told, as everyone has been told by CCSD.
Yeah, the final study won't be out till January.
Okay, guys, the public has had Alexander, the public has had its opportunity to speak. It's up at the council level now.
So I think PG&E is under a mandate. PG&E is volunteering to not come to Fairfax, at least for the time being. I'm not sure what else. And the PUC has not issued a decision on a moratorium.
And with all due respect, my question really is, are you at least willing to give us a commitment until the California Council's study has been out and has had full comment made by the public on it before there's any decision to further deploy in Fairfax?
Well, let me put it this way. If the study's coming out in the next couple of weeks or in early January, the reality is that's a month away, right? There are no plans to deploy in Fairfax in the next month. So I don't want, I want to be careful in how I say that, because I don't want to imply that PG&E in Fairfax and in other cities we're going to hold off deployment because we're waiting on a particular study. Our position is we've seen all the studies we need to see, and from our responsibility level, but in difference to our customers' feedback that we're getting here in Fairfax and some other places, we're voluntarily rescheduling some of those deployments. So I want to be very thoughtful in that, and I think I'm saying that I'm respecting Fairfax and the community here, that you have valid concerns, and I think you want more information so you can feel better about what, maybe not feel better is not the right term, but at least know that PG&E is listening to you and listening to what's available, reasonable available information. I think that those reports coming out in the next month or so is reasonable.
Well, let me just pursue it with you further. Listening to our concerns and sort of holding our hands is not getting the informed consent of the ratepayers. And my question, there's the language you're using is very conciliatory, and I appreciate that. But what consent means is that a choice is made voluntarily by the ratepayer to accept the technology or not. I mean, your own chairman has now publicly stated that your company is considering an opt-out. Now, why should all the meters in Fairfax be taken out before that decision is made?
So let me clarify what our chairman said. Our chairman did say that we are considering what options may be available and what things can be balanced out. So I don't want to say that he's saying that we will have an opt-out.
I understand that, but in the meantime, in the interim, are you willing to honor the moratorium or not?
We are willing to not deploy in Fairfax until we have further information and we take into account this is the third of 3 meetings with customer feedback.
Okay. I think we need another meeting then. And the meeting should be sometime after the California Council publishes its study and public comment is made. Because I don't think this process is done. I don't think all the questions have been answered. I think that the more we get into it, the more questions there are. And it's going to be a continuing, living, and probably growing process. So how about if I ask you this one? Are you willing to schedule another meeting with us after the California Council has published its study and public comment is made so that we can further discuss the situation, and in the meantime, continue to honor the moratorium?
I think it's within the spirit of our dialogue to have another meeting, either with the council or with the public, to provide feedback and so forth. I will not connect the fact that PG&E is legally honoring a moratorium. And I know you're going to ask me to say it in a different way, and I'm just going to say we're going to voluntarily not deploy in Fairfax until we feel we've had vetted this issue and fulfilled our commitment to you and the council and the community of hearing the input and weighing the options. John?
I've got one more aspect I want to get into, which is the billing aspect. I have a law office in San Rafael, and I've had a number of PG&E's meter readers report to me questions about the accuracy of the billing of smart meters. I've been told that there are data reporting protocols that are being used to mask problems with smart meters. If we have another meeting, and I guess, do we have an agreement that we're going to have another meeting?
I think I'm compelled to say that we should. I think we talk as a group at PG&E, in all respect, to make sure that we have a good reason to have a meeting that we can't convene another way.
Okay, well, at the next meeting, I would like to learn what the data reporting protocols are for meter readers that are discovering problems with the accuracy of smart meters.
Let me respectfully put this meter accuracy issue to rest. We have more than PG&E has provided information, volumes of information and data to structure group, spent months supporting their analysis. And the structure group has independently assessed our metering accuracy. It has provided that report to the California Public Utilities Commission. We made that report as well as the PUC available to anybody who wants to see it. The 600 plus pages as well as the executive summary. I would refer you to that report if you've not read that, to read that report, and that will provide you the information. To the extent allegations were made by some meter readers and so forth, I can't speak to that. I would direct you to the structure report.
Okay, and I understand that that report is there. I also understand there's 2 class action lawsuits that are still pending against the company about the accuracy of the meters. So I don't think the structure group puts that question to rest. And again, my question is, are you willing to bring information to our council describing the information reporting protocols that you've given to meter readers as to how they should report problem meters? Because I'm interested in knowing in whether there's been data masking. In other words, whether there's been an effort to mask data that shows meter inaccuracies in smart meters.
Again, with all due respect, I will take that back to our company to consider it. I'll check with our counsel regarding these pending cases that I'm not aware of, to say that's not occurring, and the basis of that. I will say, and I'll caution that PG is not intent to chase every allegation made by whoever, whether it be our employees or other folks. We will chase down customer issues, and we do that. But we have spent a lot of resources and time on meter accuracy, and I think we've been pretty comprehensive in responding to the PUC and the independent review by the structure report. So I respect your question. I understand what you're saying. I cannot commit to that. I will take that information back and we can go from there.
Final question. There is a California Office of Privacy, and I've contacted them to see whether they've reviewed your privacy protocols. There were 2 competing bills relating to the information reporting standards for smart meters that were up in the last legislative term, one by Senator Padilla, one by Senator Flores. The Flores bill was strong. It didn't get out of committee. The watered-down Padilla bill was passed. It's not satisfactory. With all due respect, there are so many privacy issues involved in smart meters. It goes a lot beyond whether individual data is going to be obtained by commercial users. This is a whole wave of technology, and we haven't even begun to understand all the implications. So I would like to have a discussion at our next meeting of the privacy standards that were set in the Padilla bill and the privacy standards that were set in the Flores bill.
And I would urge you to also maybe participate in the Commission's privacy proceeding. In the smart grid proceeding, we are dealing with the privacy issue, and we've held many workshops, public workshops, to discuss the privacy issues. There will be a draft decision for public comment early next year, and there will be rules set for privacy with respect to smart meters. So if you're interested, rather than having an informal discussion with PG&E, and if you would like to have it on the record in the smart grid privacy proceeding, you should check with the PUC.
Okay, well, the question really wasn't directed at the PUC. It was really directed at PG&E because it's their system. And it's my belief that these privacy protections need to be built into the system and not bolted on later.
And what I'm saying is that the PUC is setting those rules for PG&E to make sure that the consumer privacy is respected. So if you would like, you can look at the record in the PUC proceeding. What they say...
I'd like to hear PG&E's response. Thanks.
So we are actively involved in this current proceeding, and I'm happy to forward you our comments, which are very explicit about the very specific elements of a privacy program. We've been working very closely with the Center for Democracy and Technology and Electronic Foundation Frontier, which are the two leading privacy advocacy organizations in California for sure and nationwide as well. The conditions or the terms and elements of the privacy rules that we are currently supporting along with CDT and EFF are based on the Fair Information Practices principles, which are approved by Homeland Security, Department of Homeland Security, and the Federal Trade Commission. So those two organizations have promulgated guidelines for privacy. They have elements like what kind of information do you need to give to a consumer, minimization of the data that you collect only for the usage of for which your primary purpose is, what kind of information does rights to consumers have to remove themselves from access to the data, or a business to have access to the data. There's about 8 different dimensions to the privacy, the FIP rules, the Fair Information Practices principles. So I'm happy to send you our comments on that. You'll see CDT's comments embedded with ours, so you'll get a sense of what the different positions are on the different elements.
Okay, I would really appreciate that.
Sure.
Because, again, all the questions lead to more questions. And I think the process has to continue and it has to grow, because the deeper we get into it, the more there really is. So I would really appreciate it if you could forward those.
Well, and I suggest you get on the service list, because the commission will send you all the information about the proceeding.
Thank you very much.
John?
Thank you. And thank you also for coming and talking to us. I guess you could sum up a lot of what you've heard tonight is that there is a lack of trust on people. I mean, I've seen surveys where there's a lack of trust in government, around 80 or 90%. But it's not only government, it's big business and things like that. There's a lack of trust in the FCC, the FDA, and in PG&E. And there's a lack of trust in the law in terms of how it's set up, because the system is skewed, or at least it's perceived that way, in the direction of profits, of those making profits. The smart meter system that's being rolled out across PG&E's area was proposed to the CPUC as a wireless system by PG&E as a way of solving this. I mean, like all utilities, PG&E are required to do this, and this isn't news to you, but I guess it fits in. That was a bottom line driven decision to go wireless. And a hardwired system is more secure, costs a little more, and has a lot less problems in terms of public perception of what's going to happen to their data out in the air, and also all the things that you're hearing about tonight about the safety issues of wireless. People don't want to live in a suit that's only getting thicker and thicker of wireless stuff, and the studies are still out there. I can only imagine that perhaps PG&E is regretting that path that was taken a couple of years ago. Unfortunately, it's the ratepayers that are on the hook for the $2.2 billion that it's cut this particular path, and I don't know what the hardwired path would cost. $2.5 billion, I don't know what those figures would be.
$10 billion.
Yeah, $3 billion, whatever it is, I don't know.
$10 billion. For hardware, $10 billion for this program so far.
At any rate, perhaps we as ratepayers would be on the hook for that too, and perhaps we will anyway. It could well be that would be money well spent. I don't know. I mean, it's probably the CPUC making that decision on how that cost gets allocated, but I would certainly implore you to go for a hardwired, secure system, because you've stepped on a landmine, and this landmine is a hornet's nest, and the hornets are going to keep on coming out. I mean, as it gets more and more on the radar across the political spectrum, more and more people are upset about it. And it's not, I mean, I thank you for having these series of meetings here with Fairfax. I think the reason why we've heard from other towns is that people are frustrated all over, and it's a good, Fairfax is a good testing ground for this sort of thing, because people are, you know, they will come here and sit here for hours and talk about it, and the council will hold these hearings. It's a problem with the wireless system. If somebody opts out of it, they're still inundated with stuff from all their neighbors. It's a problem, and by going for a hardwired system. So it's not a question, but I would heartily implore you to go in that direction. So thank you.
David?
I think it comes down to, just for me, for just a couple of things. I think on one hand, it's a little bit of fear and hope. My fear is that at the end of the day, you're going to just roll us. It might not be today or tomorrow, and it might not be for a couple of months, but at the end of the day, I have this great fear that you'll just do it. And the mighty power and the great legal talent that you have will crush any dissent that we have. My hope, on the other hand, is that, you know, the one-size-fits-all model doesn't always have to be applied. And maybe in these kooky town, and we'll throw in a few other the kooky towns in Northern California, you just say, well, you know, they probably just don't care in other parts of the state, but here, my heavens, they seem to take this particularly seriously. And I think, as I mentioned in the first of these 3 meetings, unlike any other issue I've ever seen, I think you can walk up and down the street, I don't think you're going to find one person who's going to sign up for this thing if they have the possibility. So I sort of have this fear of what could be terribly wrong, but I hold out the olive branch of hope that cut us a break, do it differently. At the end of the day, whatever heartburn and aggravation and added expense, it nets you out. Yeah, you know, you're going to end up with good PR out of this. It'll net out to your benefit. I think it's just a better path for you generally, and certainly I think it's respectful for, you know, certain segments of your customer base. But again, and I echo John's thought and Larry's, thanks very much for coming here. It is very generous. You have spent enormous time. You brought extraordinary experts last time. You brought an immense amount of wise staff as well. And so I'm sure the community, even though we are parting this evening somewhat on the best of terms, I know I speak for the community and for the council in thanking you for your continuing effort in having this discussion.
Oh, thank you too. I'm at a loss. I feel like the messages, the public messages, we're weighing concerns against benefits, and we had a very brief conversation about benefits, I think, in our first meeting. And in our second meeting, I asked again to bring back to us what are the benefits. In my own research, what I found in Boulder and in Canada, the smart meter, the smart grids, the smart meter programs that have gone out there have come back with higher rates and little or no measurable conservation. And so I think we're assuming that this smart grid is going to give us something that it may or may not give us. And I have a lot of issues with believing that PG&E really wants there to be conservation. And there's a proposal on the table now to get rid of the tiered rates so that there can be a flat rate structure. And my understanding is that it's to some degree to keep more in clean energy and other community trace aggregates. And we don't, it makes it really hard for us to trust that you really are here to weigh concerns over benefits when I don't see the benefits of this program, and it's something that I've asked for a couple of times, or what are the benefits? Show me the benefits. And so I would love, if we do get another meeting here, show us these benefits, because I think we are a very conservation-minded community, and this is the kind of program that I would normally be jumping up and down for and saying, yes, let's give people information. Yes, let's absolutely make it as easy as possible and make the information as accessible as we possibly can so that people will reduce their usage. I think that people are in this community probably very slim users as it is because they are conscious community, but I haven't seen the benefits. And so it's really hard for me to understand this weighing concerns for benefits when I don't see the benefits for the program. So I would encourage you to bring those to me. And I want to thank our community for coming out and really being willing to be vulnerable and preach your soul and do the research and really bring yourselves out here and be heard. And I hope that they're not just heard, but actually responded to in a way that matches the passion that they brought.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody in the room for the civility tonight. I think this is a highly emotional issue. Everyone behaved, which is always appreciated. I guess my comments, I don't really have any questions. I have one question, and that is that there were discussions that had begun at the Marin clean energy level that were being led by Mr. Devereaux. And obviously with his embarrassing departure from the company, I'm wondering if those discussions are going to get picked back up. And the reason that I'm wondering is that those discussions were specific to providing another option for people who just didn't want these Wi-Fi meters on their homes. And that is a conversation that needs to continue. I'm glad to hear that PG&E came out publicly and said they were considering it, because that had been said in the meeting. And at that meeting, I implored Mr. Devereaux to go back to the office and tell people, announce that you're talking about it. Let people know that this, that there may be something coming. And you need to get those conversations within your company and out in the community, out of the incubator. And you need to come up with the alternative. That is the only honorable thing for your company to do. And I'm quite sure that if you come up with an alternative that is not detrimental to the average ratepayer, the PUC will go along with it. And we need to get into that. But those conversations need to ramp up. We need that solution on the street. Because at the end of the day, you don't have, or you shouldn't have, the right to put something on somebody's property they don't want. Your meters heretofore have been benign, and it hasn't been an issue because it was a way for us to get our electric usage read so that we could pay our bill, and it didn't hurt anybody. Well, we, despite what, the FCC and the World Health Organization and all of the other corporate bought regulatory agencies are telling us, we've been told a lot of things were safe that weren't. And nobody came and put DDT on your lawn if you didn't want it there. Nobody's putting a nuclear generator in your backyard if you didn't want it there. And you shouldn't be putting these things on somebody's houses if they don't want it there. And that means you need an alternative. And that alternative needs to get on the street. And I can't say that strongly enough. And we'll continue to say it and we'll continue to push it because it's the right thing for you all to do. And that has to be recognized. And you guys need to understand that you need to do the right thing. You have a lot of PR repair to do as a company. You've made some really foolish moves over the last couple of years, especially in this area, especially in this county. And you need to start making up some ground. And the best way for you to do that is to go to the communities and say, if you don't want this meter, here, we've got another one for you. They'll, you know, forward the smart grid, but you don't have to worry about whether or not it's going to hurt you. And that just has to happen. You need to do that as a company. And I can't say that strongly enough. Take that back to the corporate office, you know, to the decision maker. I understand you guys aren't the decision makers, and I'm not going to jam you with questions you don't have the authority to answer. But you can be messengers, you know. And to the PUC, all I can say is I hope that your minds are open to that alternative. I understand that PG&E is marching to your directive, but those directives can be changed. And I still think that if PG&E and Marine Clean Energy sat down and decided how they thought that it should be rolled out in this surface area, and we went to the PUC together and asked, we'd get the change we were looking for. And you might as well do it before the legislation comes, because this thing is boiling and the legislation is coming, you know, and you might as well get out in front of it. And I guess with that, thank you all for coming.